Welcome to Health Matters with Dr. Nelson Bulmash, sponsored by the UI Radio Network at uiradionetwork.org. Catch us on Facebook and Instagram at United Intentions and Twitter at Higher Intention. Look for us on 99.1 FM, iTunes, iHeartRadio, Spreaker, Stitcher, Blog Talk Radio, and many more. Over the next hour, we'll introduce you to some fascinating people and engaging discussions that may provide you with answers to assist in revolutionizing your own personal health. And now, here's Dr. Nelson.
Hello, everyone. I'm Dr. Nelson Bulmash, and you're listening to Health Matters on the United Intentions Media Network. If you're here in Atlanta, you may be listening to us on Talk 10 FM or WDJY FM 99.1. In Florida, you can find us on WWNN 93.5. And in Kentucky now, you can listen to us on WMTA 107.3. For those of you who are joining us for the first time, my show, Health Matters, is a show designed to discuss the best of health, inspiration, and spirituality. For those of you who don't know me, I am a chiropractor, a naturopath, a nutritionist, a retired strength coach, a radio show host, and a writer. It's great to be with all of you. This is my first show here in 2019. I have an amazing guest for you, and you'll find that the timing of her presence on the show is very, very, very good for some of you in particular. You'll know who you are. All right. So listen, folks, I've got some announcements before we get started. Number one, if you have any interest in calling us, you certainly may do so. We encourage you to do so. The call-in number is 678-495-4345. Once again, that's 678-495-4345. For those of you who are listening to us on any of the major social media networks like iHeartRadio, Blog Talk, Stitcher, and Facebook Live, thank you. We appreciate all of you joining us here today. If you have questions you want to submit, you may also do so through Facebook Live. And we do encourage you to do so. We also would love for you to share our show. We do everything we can to get amazing guests to share things that are pertinent to your life and that are actually very, very useful in improving the quality of your lives. Here's an exciting new breakthrough that we have here. You can now download our smart app at uimediaapp.com. That way you can listen and watch us at any time, 24/7. All you have to do is go to the uimediaapp.com and download it, and you can catch any show anytime. Secondly, don't forget to buy Get Your Life Back Now DVDs. To do so, you can go to www.getyourlifebacknow.live and take advantage of getting your DVDs that can help you save your life now. It's information that you can actually use. Connect with us online, folks. You can follow us on social media, on Facebook, Instagram, and YouTube as United Intentions and Higher Intentions on Twitter. Lastly, have another very exciting show for you tomorrow, folks. Tomorrow you can tune in at 4 p.m. with Maria Walden Sullivan as she interviews the amazing Jennifer Kramer. All right. So let me jump right in here. Oh, somebody put my sheet here a little further away. My guest today has a wonderful new book. I have read it. It is very authentic, easy to understand, and easy to implement. All things that I love. My guest is Erin Boardman Wathan, and she has written the book, Why Can't I Stick to My Diet? And I'm going to be talking to her for the next hour. So please feel free to contact us once again through Facebook Live or our call-in number. And gentlemen, my producers, is that number scrolling across the bottom, the phone number? Good. So we have the number 678-495-4345 scrolling across the number for those of you who are watching. All right, Erin, it is such a pleasure to have you. Thank you for joining us today. I'm so particularly pleased that you're joining us because your expertise is so aptly timed for this particular show. We're going to jump in and talk about food addiction, which you're an expert in. So before we get started, tell me a little bit about yourself and why you wrote this book. Why is this book so important to you and those who read it?
Yeah, no problem. First of all, thanks for having me.
You're welcome.
The reason I wrote this book was wrote it almost as a Back to the Future homage, as what I would have wanted to write or read
Right.
if only I could have written it for myself in my magic DeLorean, which I don't have. So I wanted to write what I would have needed, but I had to figure out on my own. So the reason I wrote it was because I was one of these women who was by no means, and I'm using air quotes for those of you driving, considered fat. I was always in a, the BMI range. I never had to, change stores or any of those sort of things. But I had this obsession with, was I going to be skinny by Friday? Could I, undo what I just ate at the gym tomorrow? Is constant. Yeah, I refer to it as a white noise machine that was always on of, calories in, calories out. My pretty much life ever since I was 14 years old of, dieting and sugar and just obsessing about what I was eating.
Right.
And I was an exercise teacher, which now I'm like crazy, but it's actually very common in the fitness world to have eating disorder, like
Yeah.
rampant,
Yes, it
like
is. Yes, it
frankly,
is.
I mean,
I do.
so the fact, and I was probably one of the healthiest people I knew there, I mean, mentally at least. So,
Right.
so I was always working out and I remember saying to my poor husband, like, why aren't I any thinner? And or why don't I look different? Or do I look fat to you? And all those usual questions. And he would be like, I'm going to leave the room now. So
Yeah, we men don't
it
know how
was,
to handle those
yeah,
questions.
he's like, I'm going to go bye, whatever.
Right.
So, yeah, I just felt like my body wasn't reflecting the amount of effort I was putting in it. I was teaching and I was exercising and I was, upping the cardio and lowering and whatever the new trend was that week. On space, there's always a new fitness trend.
That there is.
And it wasn't until I got serious about my food in a very bare bones way, because I had lost weight many times. I
Sure.
mean, numerous times, but it kind of kept finding me.
Yes.
And then I'd lose it again. It was like a lost and found, right? And then I even worked for Weight Watchers. I mean, I knew what exactly they were talking about, and that I would still gain weight, or I would, it just is constant back and forth. It was exhausting. And I got really into the nutrition side of it because I'm like, there's got to be something I'm missing here.
Right.
Like, and I remember talking to people, they're like, I just stopped dieting and I lost weight. I'm like, what? Can you speak English, please? Like, this is not possible. You're clearly taken over by pod people. I mean, please, like, just tell me who you paid money to and I'll go pay them myself. Like, this is all a scam and you're saying this to entice me. Who do I need to pay? And I didn't understand what they were saying. I mean, now I understand what they were saying, but at the time, it just seemed so simple,
Right.
and almost like magic. What do you mean you just eat when you're hungry and you eat real food and you don't eat when you're upset? Wait, what? Like, there's got to be a trick, right?
Absolutely.
So, I mean, the trick is stop looking for the trick. But I didn't understand that. I didn't
Right.
believe it, because when you're in the dieting culture for the decades I was in, there's always a trick. The trick is the points, or the trick is the containers, or it's the shake mix, or it's ketosis now is the trick, right? So when you're always looking for the trick and there is no trick, you're like, this has got to be the biggest trick of all. So that's what got me into becoming a food addiction counselor. I mean, I had to go to Iceland to do it. And then then I got on this idea of, like, I really wanted to write a book. And the
Right.
reason I ended up writing a book that was on Kindle first was because I knew women would read things on their iPad
Right.
because of 50 Shades of Grey that they might not read in person. Because if
Yes.
you're sitting there on the subway with why can't I stick to my diet, and diet's in a very big font because I remember picking this out with my publisher, versus your iPad, I have no idea what's going on in your iPad.
That's right.
This, I'm like, oh, they've got weight issues. But so I I remember thinking about all my friends I knew that were reading 50 Shades of Grey at soccer practice. I'm like, well, I bet you people would read this on their iPad or their Kindle or whatever. And it could get out, the information could get out. And that just kind of got me thinking about, 50 Shades of Grey, who knew? That kind of got me thinking about how information is spread
Right.
organically sometimes it's, dirty information, but it can be spread for good as well in, word of mouth, and how we can just finally get over this whole diet obsession. Because like I said, since I was 14 years old, I was always in some state of losing weight, gaining weight, last suppering it. I was never just living. I was never just existing, because I didn't know how to do that. I didn't know how to just be. And when I was writing my book, I just remember thinking, what would I have needed? Like, what would I have wanted to know? Because I had been through so many diets, and because I had failed at so many diets and been frustrated by so many diets, what are the basics? Just what, and that's why I have like the 4 fundamentals, which is just so simple. It's like
Right.
you have 4 fingers, right?
Yes. Yeah,
It's just
exactly. It's on one
and
hand, but it's easy to understand.
exactly, like 4, it wasn't like just 1 finger. It was 4 fingers. What do you need to do? And what are the 4 things I need to eat every time I'm eating? It's very simple, one hand, like what can I do? Because the way that I look at it is, you're not on a diet. You're just going to live the rest of your life this way.
Right.
And you're just going to be eating, and you're going to be living. And I weigh myself now, and it's within like a pound or 2, depending on,
So,
time of the month.
right.
But
Sure.
that's how it is. So it's not the huge fluctuations I was experiencing forever, because I'm always eating the same way.
Way. Aaron, if I may, it sounds like there are really 2 issues here. In listening to you speak, it sounds like there's very definitely a mental issue, an emotional issue. And then it sounds like perhaps there are specific foods that might be deleterious to our health that can create great sways, if you will, in the scale. Am I correct?
Absolutely.
Okay, let's talk
Yes.
about that. So what I heard a moment ago is you really struggled. You had this great struggle with food and how it affected the quality of your life, your emotional state, your mental state, and you put a great deal of time into this so you could become someone who could rely on the right foods, the right mindset. And then I'm guessing you decided that it was very important to help other maybe women more so than men to do the same. Is what I heard. Am I correct on that?
Absolutely.
Okay, super. So what are some of the foods, Aaron, that you think are, I'm going to use the word dangerous. I don't know if I'm exaggerating or not when I say that, but that might be more dangerous or might make it more difficult to create the number on the scale that men and women are looking for when they want to find that ideal weight. Talk to me about that.
Well, anything involving high fructose corn syrup is definitely on, the to be considered problematic food list.
Right.
For me, there are people in this world who don't care about donuts. I'm one of them. There are people that don't care about chips. I'm one of them. I cared a lot about things like licorice or gummies, and those were my jam. And so that's was my go-to. Those, and the problem with these is they're at drugstores, they're at gas stations,
Yes.
they're at Staples, they're
Right.
everywhere.
Easy to find.
And so high fructose corn syrup is it's the pinnacle of the bad things, right?
Yeah.
It's genetically modified to hit all the dopamine receptors, which are the pleasure sensors, for those of you that don't know what I'm talking about. So they are made in a lab, they're altered in a lab on a genetic level to be as addictive as possible, to make us feel as good as possible, as quickly as possible.
Right. Well said.
And the problem with instant gratification is it comes instantly and it leaves in an instant.
Yes.
So then you're stuck with the dilemma of, do I crash and burn and feel horrible, or do I just keep on feeding the beast, right? So for me, usually I chose option B. Let's
Right.
just keep on going. And what I didn't know at the time was my gallons of Diet Coke and NutraSweet that I'd been consuming forever. I mean, I would go to Dunkin' Donuts and have about 12 packages of NutraSweet,
Wow.
was contributing to, I think it was probably like 6, but contributing to how much sugar I was eating.
Sure.
Because we thought it was great to have a lot of Equal. I mean, Equal was better than the
Than
yellow
sugar.
packets.
Aaron,
Yeah,
I'll
right,
tell you what,
totally.
what we're going to do here. I hate to interrupt you. We got to take a commercial break.
Of course.
Folks, Dr. Nelson Bulmash here. My guest is Aaron Wathan. We're talking about her new book, Why Can't I Stick to My Diet? Thank you for joining us. Don't touch that dial. We'll be right back.
Purpose, action, results. Life coach Catherine Tinguy, as seen on Forbes, The Huffington Post, and many more, is on a mission to raise the vibration of the planet, one person at a time. Her work has impacted many people to identify their true purpose to create more fulfilling careers, relationships, and health. If you want to reach your highest potential and change your life, call her today. Coach Kat will help you get what you want and create a roadmap on how to get there. She likes to say, if you want to change your life, you have to ask yourself the essential questions. Get the life you want today, be the best version of yourself, and live your life to your fullest potential. Call 310-498-2356 or visit coach-cat.com to find out more. Mention you heard this on UI Media Network and receive 20% off.
Hello, everybody. Dr. Nelson Bulmash here. You're listening to Health Matters. My guest today is the author of her brand new book, Why Can't I Stick to My Diet? Aaron Wathan. Aaron, thank you for returning. So in other words, what I was talking to Aaron a moment ago, for those of you who just joined us, who was speaking about the power of sugar at hijacking our brain and our nervous system and how it gives that instantaneous euphoric rush. And it does so quickly and easily, and that it is readily found from drugstores to grocery stores to gas stations. Aaron, let's jump back into this. Let's talk about how sugar hijacks your brain and why it's so hard to avoid.
It's so hard to avoid because, like you were saying, it's in gas stations and bus stations,
Right.
and all the places where the high quality things happen in our lives. But it's also in almost all of the processed foods. It's naturally in things like fruit. The sugar in a mango is very different than the sugar in a bag of licorice
Right.
at a certain point, but you still can eat enough mangoes that your body gets very happy. Like, you get that kind of buzz from a lot of, if you have a
Sure.
smoothie,
Right.
it's so quick and it's not that much fiber. I don't care, it doesn't slow it down enough. So when we have that huge rush of sugar, it comes in and it leaves, is unless we have our blood sugar balanced with protein and fat, which is what I advocate for. But that wasn't what I was doing. I
Sure.
was just eating sugar all day.
Yeah, well, you end up kind of you're an addict. Let's be real about this. I by the way, I just loved your authenticity. You were so direct about this. Aaron, years ago when I attended the University of Michigan in the biology and chemistry department, I argued with many people that sugar was the parent of all addictions. It was so easy to come by. It was natural. Nobody thought you were a felon. It wasn't like shooting up with heroin or snorting cocaine. We could get it anywhere. It was okay. And so nobody really focused on how bad it was and all the problems it created emotionally, physically, the diseases that it ushered in, in the 80s, 90s, and now 2000s. So I have a question for you, Aaron. If I may, I'm going to go to page 12 of your book, if you'll indulge me. Aaron, let's talk about how do you know if your brain's been hijacked? Because, the problem with addiction is until you you're an addict, Aaron, it's just something you do, right? So, Aaron, let's talk about some of the questions that would help someone to understand whether or not a sugar addiction is a problem of theirs. Would you, I think you have the book in front of you. Would you like to go through them, or do you want me to read them off to you?
No, I'll go through them.
Okay.
I just wanted to give everyone that hasn't read my book just the background that when I was in my food addiction counseling program, they recommended that I go to all the food addiction 12-step models, which are based on Alcoholics Anonymous, which most of us are familiar with. And there are a lot of 12-step food programs. Some are incredibly rigid to the point of you're weighing and measuring everything you're eating. You have to finish it all, even if you're not hungry. To very lax, but they're all based on the 12 steps,
Principle.
Bill W. and that whole thing, just
Right.
background.
Okay.
So if you've ever known an addict or are familiar with Alcoholics Anonymous, they have a questionnaire. So the OA questionnaire is similar, and I'm just going to walk you through the questions I felt were relevant
Great.
for sugar.
Great.
So,
Thank you.
for example, do I go on food binges for no apparent reason, sometimes eating until I'm stuffed or even feel sick? This happened a lot to me, and I know many others that have this sort of issue going on. You don't even mean to eat as much as you do. Next thing you know, the bag is empty. Next thing you know, you're feeling really nauseous when you were just going to have a couple. So you kind of almost zone out when you're in the midst of it, while other people can just have a couple and go about their day, like how I mentioned about donuts. I don't care about donuts. Other people, donuts are a problem. So if this question, you're kind of, some bells are going off in your head, just, keep listening.
Got it. Super.
Okay.
Question 2.
Do I have any feelings of guilt, shame, or embarrassment about my weight or the way I eat? So, for example, I would not go to the doctor because I was afraid of getting weighed if I was sick as a dog. Okay. I mean, I would have like a sinus infection and I would think to myself, well, what if they weigh me? Or like one time I cut my foot open at the mall. I mean, at the mall, like with all
Right.
those disgusting germs. And I was
Yes.
thinking, if I go to the emergency room, are they going to want to weigh me? Like that was seriously a concern. And then my husband said, you probably are going to need a tetanus shot. I'll just put Neosporin on it. He's
Right.
like, you're going to have to go to the ER. I'm like, and I said, I'll go by myself. I didn't want him to go with me. And by the way, nobody weighed me. But still, like that was a
On your
thought
mind.
in my
Sure.
head was like, I'm going to delay medical attention because they might weigh me for my foot. Like,
wow.
That's a problem. All right. Do I eat one way in front of others or not at all? And then make up for it when I'm alone. This is a classic one where there's almost Dr. Jekyll and Mr. Hyde, right? There's the public way you eat
Right.
and the private way you eat. So just pay attention, or is anything sounding familiar? And if your emotions are intense, do you find yourself going for food? So if you're really happy, let's eat a cake. If you're really upset, let's eat a cake. Both roads ended in cake. Like, just be aware.
Right.
Intense anything, food is related. And I didn't know this for a long time. There are people, when they have something good happen, it does not impact their appetite, believe it or not.
I believe it. I'm that person.
I know, right?
I mean, I don't crave sugar.
I'm that person now.
For me, it's like, okay, I need a good protein source. Where can we get a good steak?
Yeah, I know. But I mean, I at first I was like, this
Right.
is an urban legend.
Yes.
All right. And lastly, do I fantasize about how much better my life would be if I had a handle on my food? Now, this you and I were talking about
That's right. We sure were.
Before we got on the call, in which, oftentimes when we're struggling with our weight, we have this fantasy about, if only I weighed, 125, for example. Yeah, I wouldn't get parking tickets. My husband would never be moody in the morning. The dog would never have accidents. When actually your husband's probably going to still be moody. I can't speak to your dog. And,
Right.
The parking people, they hate us all. So it's just one aspect of your life. But if you're having these like very in-depth fantasies about how better life would be if only, you really have the importance of it out of whack because you're spending way too much time obsessing about it.
Yes.
So of these, just really think about, if more than one seemed a little close to home, then you really might want to reach out to me or buy my book and see what's going on with yourself.
Well, that's a good point. So that sets me up for my next question, because Erin, what I want to know is, and by the way, folks, once again, it's a very good book. Erin is very, very authentic, and Erin, I love that in particular because we live in a time where it's so much about looking good. And whether you look, whether you are good or not, there's so much importance on looking good. I'm not very much into that. I'm about being good, not so much looking good. So I love that they have access to this. You can put them on a path. Where do they go from here? Let's say they buy your book and they read it. What's the next step after you've read page 12, you finish the book, Aaron? Where do we go from here if you realize, you know what, we've now gone from that predetermination state where we're not sure this is a real problem to, I was 5 for 5 on this. I think there's a problem at hand. What are the next action steps?
Definitely clean out everything in your house, really commit to making a change and not have that short-term diet mentality, because that familiar January New Year's resolution, new year, new you, jumpstart January, that's part of it. Because we have that short-term mentality of
Right.
trying the new diet, if it worked, why are we having to do it every year?
Yeah. Very, very good point.
So it's almost as if, all the people that are, Marie Kondoing all over the place because she's got that show on Netflix, they're all organizing their closet, right? A
Right.
super, super trendy orange closet, which is cool. Like, I did it too, by the way. So if you're going to organize your closet, don't just take out a couple sweaters. Just take everything out since you're in there.
Yep.
And just look at it all, meaning like, so why do I go to ice cream and my mother is, giving me a hard time because I'm still single? Like, really evaluate that. If you need to hire a coach or go to my website, because I have tons of free content on there. Because if you don't get to the why you went to ice cream, you're going to need to really evaluate that, because your mom is probably still going to give you a hard time about you still being single, even if you decided ice cream doesn't work for you. Because there's so much in life we can't do anything about. Like, Ben and Jerry's is still going to churn out ice cream. I'm very confident. And your mom, God bless her, is probably still going to want to know why you're still single. So what you do have influence over is how you decide to internalize or decide to, ignore your mother and
Right.
her
Yeah, how you live your
suggestions,
life.
and whether or not you keep that stuff in your environment, and whether or not you have a feeling you don't like it, you go to food, or you have a feeling you acknowledge, yeah, I feel uncomfortable or I'm annoyed, and that's okay.
Yeah, you have to
It's
feel what you feel
okay.
to heal. Sure.
Yeah, exactly. So my mom gave me a hard time because I'm single and everybody else in her club has grandkids. Okay, that's my mom. Blah, blah. And then, oh my gosh, I sat with it. The world did not end. I did not explode. Okay, there it is. So the first time you're able to sit with a feeling that you don't really like, you're going to be very, almost itchy, right?
Sure.
But once you are able to just, and I surf, so like ride the wave, I know, you will realize it's going to be okay. You are frustrated. You are, it's like that emoji poster like kindergartners have nowadays of like, what are you feeling? You will find you're feeling something, and that you feel many things a day. You have many thoughts a day. You will be okay. But it's the stuffing it down with ice cream and not acknowledging it, then having to go undo the ice cream. That whole drama we used to create, or I used to create, which is a very familiar pattern I used to do. The thing is, I never actually addressed the thing with my mom,
Bingo.
which needed to be addressed, right?
Yes.
So maybe
Yes.
she had a point, or maybe she was totally across the line. I mean, I don't even know, because I haven't even given that any energy, because I'm too busy dealing with the chubby hubby and then cleaning up the chubby hubby. The irony of single, right? So
Right.
if I'm not dealing with my mom and whether or not she's, lovingly being annoying or being completely, over the top, because I'm so busy doing damage control, I've created a problem I'm used to handling and I'm
Yes.
comfortable handling.
Right.
So the actual matter at hand is completely ignored. So once we're able to, okay, maybe she's right, maybe she's not. Okay, whatever, moving on with my day. that's a whole new way of living for most of us, because most of us are just, reacting all over the
Right.
place, right?
Sure. Sure.
So once we start responding, once we start being able to, sit with a little discomfort and know that we're going to be okay, the world is a different place.
Definitely. Aaron, we're going to return on that thought. Folks, we're going to take a commercial break. I'm Dr. Nelson Bulmesh. My guest today is Aaron Wathan. We're talking about her new book, Why Can't I Stick to My Diet? We'll be right back.
The United Intentions Foundation is proud to announce that we're beneficiaries for City Gala, a foundation that supports humanitarian, philanthropic, and educational efforts. The City Gala is produced for the purpose of promoting equality, assisting in access to higher education, funding mentorship and entrepreneurship programs. The Gala also pushes influential individuals to become activists and face the challenges of current events. We've been fortunate enough to be selected as one of the foundations slated to raise money and garner support from influential and remarkable people. To get involved, visit www.citygala.org and learn more about this wonderful foundation. You can also join their mastermind club and have access to top executives and influencers from different industries to help you network and build your brand and business. We're honored to be a part of City Gala, and we hope you join the journey to success with us.
Hello, everyone. I'm Dr. Nelson Bulmesh. You're listening to my show, Health Matters. My guest today is the author of Why Can't I Stick to My Diet, Aaron Wathan. Aaron, something occurred to me while you were speaking a moment ago, and that is, I think one of the things that has to change is parents really need to stop associating sugar with rewarding you and helping you when you're going through a critical time. I think that's a really big mistake. I mean, think about this. You break up with your boyfriend and your mom or dad says, honey, let's go out for ice cream. So now you're linking the emotional dissatisfaction, right, with getting the euphoria, if you will, from some kind of a sugar, whether it be candy, pies, ice cream. And then you win something. And what do? You go for the ice cream again.
So win or lose, you get ice cream.
Yeah, win or lose, you get ice cream, right? I think, Aaron, I think we need to, as parents, I think we really, really need to look at this. And when I was studying nutrition at the biochemical level, one of the things that some of my mentors said, my professors, that is, said, Nelson, one of the things that's very critical is that you make sure that you're feeding your kids really healthy food and very low sugar. When I say low sugar, I'm talking processed, not, organic blackberries, mangoes, and the like, up until the time they're 7. Because I've heard it said by many of my professors, once you're 7 years of age, your taste buds are set, and it becomes increasingly difficult to alter the structure, if you will, on how and what you eat. Any comment on that?
It's interesting because my mother always swore I would like coconut one day when I was a kid.
Yes.
I was like, there's no way I will ever like coconut. It's repulsive. And I must eat or consume 3 or 4 types of coconut a day because I'm lactose intolerant. So I
Got
like
it.
coconut milk and coconut cream,
Right.
So, I think that, our palates generally are, we also, grow up and, when we're younger, if you think about it, like we're programmed to like sweets because of breast milk and all that kind of stuff. But we can also do a lot of damage to young children by giving them those nasty juices, the
Right.
processed spaghetti-o things,
Thank you.
all that's, the
Stuff.
Happy Meals.
Yes.
Yeah, I mean, as I call it, the tan food group.
Yes.
Like
Tan food
everything
group.
is the same
Brilliant.
color, like pizza, the
Right.
chicken nugget, the fries, the applesauce. I mean,
Yes.
So we can do a lot of damage. I mean, when my kids were little, don't get me wrong, like I know that if you ban it, the kids are like, where is it? So, if we were out and it was a party, they were able to have cake and that, I mean, I wasn't ridiculous
Sure.
with those sort of things.
So you
I know
limit
that
it.
that
Here.
backfires.
Yeah.
Which in the sugar addiction world, they think I'm the devil for that. They're like, you're normalizing sugar, Aaron. I'm like, okay, let's see what happens. So, but when I was a kid and I was never, ever, ever allowed to have sugar, I would finish an entire piece of cake, even if I wasn't hungry, even if I felt sick, even
Right.
if my pants were hurting me, I would finish it. So let's see what happens if you don't make it a big deal to kids. And let's see what happens if they get a good report card and you take them to the movies and you don't stop by the cashiers or the concession stand. The movies is the big deal, or time with the family is a big deal. You know, I had a client a couple weeks ago who was saying she's really frustrated because her kid won't eat. And she was telling me all this stuff, and basically the kid wouldn't eat, and so she sent her to dinner without sent her to bed without dinner.
Right.
And it also meant no story time. That also meant no, cuddle time. And I was like, wait, stop. I said, you do not associate food with love.
Love.
She's like, but I'm not. I'm like, yeah,
Yes, you are.
She didn't eat. Hence, love is,
right.
restricted that
no
night.
Snuggle time, no story time. Yes.
And I said, and by the way, then we had a whole conversation about like, helping her. She can pick out the tacos or whatever the heck it was. But I said, stop associating food and love, whether it's restricted or whether it's given. I said, you need to cut that cord, because the more our feelings and food are enmeshed, the crazier it gets in our head. Because the problem is, whenever we have a feeling, we go to food, or we see food and we have a feeling. In either direction, it's a bad idea. I can't even tell you the number of people when I say, how are your holidays? And all they can talk about is what they ate.
Isn't that interesting? That's how
Not
powerful
who they
that
saw,
is. Right.
What they did, what their kid got a bike or whatever. It's, oh my gosh, my mother made the cannolis.
Right.
Well, it's cool you have a mom that can cook, but
yeah, but a lot of emphasis.
A lot of emphasis. And so and I get the power of food and the power of community and that table and all those warm fuzzies. But do you understand that if you took out the cannolis, your mother would still be there?
Yeah, so the focus should be on mom and family time, not so much on the cannolis. Hey, Erin, I want to share something that we did that worked very, very successfully with our kids. Number one, we gave them organic fruit as a sugar source. We were not parents who gave candy. Now, this is very interesting because the kids got older, they really didn't have a sugar tooth. So when we go out to dinner, it's rare that we order anything sugary at the end as a dessert. And when we do something that I think is kind of fun and interesting. First of all, we'll get something that is the healthiest choice. We go to really good restaurants, right, where they use healthier ingredients. And then we all share it, which is really fun. So everybody gets, maybe a bite or two rather than 10 to 20. Secondly, the thing that we did that I love, it worked very well for us, is I'm not a big fan of Halloween. It's very commercialized. I love the idea of maybe being able to dress up, but kids coming back with 22 pounds of candy is absurd to me, right? We're just really promoting diabetes early in life for these kids. So, but what we did that I loved was, and I think this was my wife's idea. She said, one day she sat down with my girls and said, girls, and of course they're really, really young, the Candy Fairy talked to me last night. And my girls said, really? The Candy Fairy? What did the Candy Fairy want?
Sisters of the Tooth Fairy.
Yeah, Sister of the Tooth Fairy. And she said, well, she sat down and she said, hey, do you think your girls would be interested in giving up all but 5 pieces of candy in exchange for a book that you want and maybe a good movie? And so we traded a good book that the kids really wanted and a good movie, right, when we used to buy the tapes. And so the girls said, they looked at each other and went, that sounds incredible to me. What about you? Yeah, Mommy, yes. So we'd put it out on the porch. And of course, in the morning, we'd go out, right before they woke up, and we'd give them their books. Their candy would be thrown out. They never knew it. They'd have 5 pieces of candy. The rule was they can only have 1 piece after dinner, after they had a full meal. So, right, the sugar went in slowly. Yeah. And it worked really well until one day our daughters winked at us and said, Mom, what will a Candy Fairy give us this year? When they're old enough to know better, of course. And we said, hey, look, it kept you out of trouble. And they said, no, I got it. It did. So, the neat thing is we'd read the books with them. We'd watch the movies with them. We'd have good family time. And they would never get ridiculous about eating 12 pieces of candy a day. So for us, that worked really, really well.
Yeah, no, my daughter's birthday is actually on Halloween.
Oh, so double threat.
It's a it's a double threat. But what I did, and I threw many, many Halloween parties, and we'd have buckets of candy, and is I would give them, one day, and then on the second, I would say, guess what? We're donating it to the fire department, the
Yeah, yeah,
police
yeah, yeah.
department,
Right.
soldiers. And I would, we're going to the toy store and I'll give you $20 each or whatever it was, just to
Sure.
get it out of
Out
the
of the house.
house.
Yeah.
And they never cared because they had something. And it would always be like my son would get Legos and my daughter would get whatever craft she was into. Now she wants, money at Sephora. But it was still they still got to experience the whole Halloween thing. And they got it's still disgusting. But again, if you make it forbidden, you don't let them participate,
Yeah.
you're creating a bigger issue. But finding something that works in your family, because I know people, I mean, that stuff's around the 10th, the 12th.
Yeah.
And, the Day of the Dead is November 1st, just coincidentally. And I think that is so fitting because all those kids the next day, if it's a school day, they are so hungover from the sugar
Yes.
at night, and they're just in foul moods. And it is just an ugly scene in schools across the land. And I'm sure every teacher is like, why isn't this a holiday? Like, why?
But yeah, isn't that
But
crazy though to take off because they're hungover because they ate too much candy? I
I'm
mean,
saying, and then these are the same people that'll tell me that sugar addiction's a bunch of
yeah.
hooey. And I'm like,
No.
well, how are your
Oh
kids
my
November
goodness.
1st?
There's still people who don't believe
They're
it's
just tired.
yeah.
Like, no,
Nah.
no, there's tired, then there's that.
Right.
So, with all this stuff that, and what's interesting, because I told you the program I went to was very international. There were people from Iceland and Australia and Dubai and, just all over the world, is how food addiction is accepted in so many countries. And in America, it's like, shut up, Aaron, because
Wow.
nobody wants to hear about it. I know.
See, I'm
And
a chiropractor, naturopath, and a nutritionist with some advanced degrees in nutrition. So I mean, you and I've been on the same page for 30 years, and I didn't know there were so many people who were still giving you a hard time about sugar being a really significant issue.
yeah, they are. But then when I
They're
sit and talk to
addicts.
them, but then when I back them into it, and we talk about the day after Halloween, or we
Right.
talk about you know just symptoms of addiction, they will reluctantly go there. But then they're like, well, then why does the government do anything? I'm like, you're going to
You
count
want
on
the
the
government
government.
to regulate that?
You're going to count on the current government, and that's what you're going to do.
Yeah. Mm-hmm.
So, but but I was talking to a man who was in charge of the food addiction initiative in the UAE. So, United Arab
Emirates.
Emirates.
Mm-hmm. You
Emirates,
got
right?
it. You got
So,
it.
and what happened was, this is what happens in every country. We show up with our McDonald's and our KFC, and everybody
Yes.
gets very fat. It happened in China. You've read the China study.
Yes.
It happened in Forks Over Knives. It
Yes.
happens in every
Right.
stuff.
And it'll
So
happen everywhere you test it.
it's happening now in the Gulf. So all these kids are getting, and some adults are getting very overweight. I was in Dubai a summer and a half ago, and they're promoting gastric bypass. Now, the problem
Oh
with
my
gastric
goodness.
bypass is you're not dealing with the emotional issue. Because if you're truly an addict, you will find another way, which is why a lot of
Right.
people, when I was in OA, they're like, I used to be in another fellowship, which in OA language means they used to go to NA or AA, or they
Sure.
were in another thing,
12-step group.
and
Right.
12 steps, and they ended up in food, which is very common because it's a little more acceptable. It's very common for people in AA to gain 20 pounds because they eat all the donuts during the meetings.
Yeah.
Or
And oh,
eat
by
ice
the way,
cream every night.
what a mistake to give people sugar at another 12-step group like Alcoholics Anonymous.
No, I mean, in AAs, at least in my area, when they have their anniversary meetings, there's always a sheet cake.
Yeah.
And they must get them in bulk from Costco.
Wow.
But with I was talking to this guy who works for the UAE food addiction thing, because of their culture, they can't really address the food. And I said, how are you going to get anywhere if you can't
Yeah.
address the food? He's like, because we can't go in saying they're doing something wrong.
Right. Right.
I said, okay, so you're going to crowd it out, is because that's like, crowding it out means you're just going to, bring in a bunch of like broccoli, basically,
Yeah.
right?
Yeah. Yeah.
Just for those of you that didn't know what I'm talking about. So crowding it out is, so with my husband, for example, when I didn't just to throw out his Doritos, when I brought in, quinoa chips, for example, and he would, look at the quinoa chips on his way to the Doritos. That's crowding it out. So in nutrition speak. So he was telling me that they had to crowd out the junk food
Yeah.
and then just buy treadmills for everyone.
Oh
I
my
said, okay,
goodness.
so I said, so exercise is great and all, but you're not dealing with
The real
addiction.
problem. Yeah.
I know. And the thing is too, is that in all seriousness, most addicts, meaning drugs and alcohol, had some sort of experience 10, 11, 12 years old, right?
Right.
Almost every single one of them will tell you when they were a kid, they were fascinated with sugar.
Sure.
Eric Clapton, the other day, I saw a movie with him. He was talking about when he was 5,
Yep.
down, just eating cubes of sugar. Now, if so many of us, that is like our gateway. Why is it the gateway? Because it's, intense, and it's so easy. Like, think about it. If you're
Yeah.
a little kid, there's a bowl of
Sure.
sugar on the table, right?
Right.
So we're
Aaron,
normalizing it.
forgive me.
and
I'm so
then-
sorry for interrupting. Aaron,
It's
I
okay.
apologize. We got to take one more break, and then we'll come back and we'll finish up this thought, and we'll talk to everybody about what steps they can do to help them move forward through this addiction. Folks, Dr. Nelson Bulmash here. Once again, you're listening to Health Matters, and my guest is Erin Boardman-Wathen, and we're talking about her new book, Why Can't I Stick to My Diet? We'll be right back.
Hi, my name is Maria Walden Sullivan, and I'd love to invite you to tune into my new show, Better Self, Better World, on WDJY 99.1 FM. It's a show on self-improvement, self-discovery, and giving back to make the world a better place. You know what they say, you can't help others if you can't help yourself. Well, I really take that personally, and so do my wonderful guests who come on my show. From nonprofit charities to high-level business executives, I'd like to invite people who are making a difference in this world. Listen to Better Self and Better World on Spreaker, iTunes, iHeartRadio, Stitcher, and many more as United Intentions. You can also follow me at United Intentions on Facebook, Instagram, and YouTube, and on Twitter at Higher Intention. Be sure to watch me on Facebook Live too. You can't pour from an empty cup, so let's fill you up and serve others at your highest good. I'm Maria Walden Sullivan, and I cannot wait for you to join me on Better Self, Better World.
Hello, everybody. Dr. Nelson Bulmash. I'm back. My guest, Erin Boardman-Wathen. Erin, and thank you again. I'd love to talk to you for another couple hours here. This information is so valuable for so many people, but we only have about 12 minutes. So I'm going to have to tighten things up a little bit, Erin. Let's talk about how we break away from this addiction and we begin to stabilize the way we eat so that it supports our health and our well-being emotionally and physically. What's the next step that people do to begin to stabilize their blood sugar, in other words?
One of the easiest ways is the liquid calories. So many Americans in particular, soda, the frappuccinos, like those things are really made to just hit your bloodstream as quickly as
Right.
possible. So cutting back on those is a really good way to start, just off the bat. Just that's the first thing that comes to mind. And just be very aware when you're at the grocery store. Let's just start at the grocery store because I really believe most of our meals should be coming from grocery stores,
Yes.
not restaurants.
Right.
You should really be sticking to the rails, as I call it. So the produce, the produce wall is pretty much in every grocery store across the world. The back wall is usually meat, and then the other one is dairy. So there's not a lot of good stuff in the middle. It's usually all processed stuff. It's where the Cocoa Puffs live, and the processed, everything
Sure.
lives in the middle. So eating real food, because the processed food, meaning it's already it's ground down, so it's gonna hit your bloodstream so
Quickly.
quickly because it's almost kind of pre-digested in a sense.
Yeah.
Um, because the flour is in such a way that it hits our bloodstream almost like sugar.
Well, it
So
has no
it's just
fiber anymore. It's just the starch, which breaks down very quickly.
it's just the starch,
Yeah.
exactly. So that's why, you know, um, so many of people in our industry say stay away from sugar, flour, and artificial sweetener because they all act like sugar or are
Right,
sugar.
right.
So those are the three main things I talk about in my book: sugar, artificial sweetener. Because the thing with artificial sweetener is the reason why it acts like sugar, and this also includes everyone's beloved stevia, is it tricks our brain into thinking we're having something sweet. Okay,
Mhm.
great. The brain thinks, yay, sweetness. But then it doesn't actually give all of the little, the boost of the sugar.
Right.
And our body's jonesing for it, basically. And there's a lot of really strong research that people that have artificial sweeteners in their diet end up eating more sugar than those that just
Sure.
eat the real sugar.
Yeah.
And not that I want you eating real sugar, but just don't think that you're somehow figuring out a workaround by
Right.
having a lot of stevia, because it's still artificial sweetener. It's still going to mess with your brain, and
Sure.
you're still in that world where you're looking for sweetness.
Sweetness. Well, Aaron, let's
You know,
talk about this then. Let's just jump right in. You have a wonderful balance between proteins, fats, and sugar. Let's talk about that, because the real key here is to stabilize your blood sugar level. It's harder to go sideways if your blood sugar level is well maintained. Tell us about the ratios and how to go about living so that you're eating consistently with the ratios that you so love and talk about in your book.
this is the basic, just, because I don't like to make things super complicated, because who can remember, right?
That's right. Yeah,
so
no, good point.
so basically, if you think of why eating, why kids act like nightmares when they eat a bunch of sugar. So all they're eating is sugar. So the bloodstream goes up, the bloodstream goes down, as do their moods. They act really hyper, then they act really ugly. So how do you counteract that? Well, you have protein, slow digesting,
Right.
fat, slow digesting, and then
Jesting.
you have a low glycemic carb, which I'll get to in a second. And then you have fiber. Now, fiber is the unsung hero, I believe, in a lot of nutrition,
Yes.
because it fills you up. So, actual like bulk in your stomach. It keeps things regular, which I'm not going to go into. But it also helps regulate your blood sugar, which is what we're trying to do. Because the huge blood sugar swings are why we get crabby at 4 o'clock in the afternoon
Hmm.
if lunch isn't balanced
Yes.
right.
Right.
Ever notice that line around the vending machine? It's because people's lunch wasn't right.
Right. Yeah. Good point.
So when I talk about low glycemic carbs, I'm talking about things like spaghetti squash, for example, or zucchini. So some sort of a carb that's not going to jack your blood sugar, like pasta, but it's still going carb free isn't realistic, because carbs are broccoli, carbs are zucchini, carbs are artichokes, carbs are vegetables.
Right.
So everyone that's doing this keto, if they're doing it strict keto, they're doing like half a cup of broccoli a day, which is not a good idea for your system. So what I'm a big fan of is low glycemic carbs, like I said. So, green vegetables, or a low glycemic fruit like blueberries, raspberries, the whole berry family.
Yes.
So you keep things regular, you keep things moving, and let's face it, like who doesn't want a little fruit now and then? But you're eating it with protein and
Yeah.
fat,
That's
so
right.
your blood sugar is pretty
Stable.
consistent throughout the day.
Hmm.
And you'll know you have it right if you can go 5-6 hours between meals. I remember being hungry at 10 o'clock in the morning when I ate at 7 all the time.
Right.
I mean, I just was.
Yeah. No, I get it.
um, and when we're eating in a balanced way, we don't have the huge swings. We're not hungry right afterwards, and we don't have that 4 o'clock thing. But initially, when you're learning how to, eat in a balanced way, it might seem that there has to be a catch. There actually isn't, because you can eat a lot of green vegetables.
Right.
I mean, ounce for ounce, they're really like, I think you can eat like, pounds of spinach for like, 1 tablespoon of oil or something. I mean, I don't know. Those are just I pulled it out of the sky.
Yeah.
But you can definitely, have a lot of green vegetables and have healthy fats and have healthy proteins without having to get super, super restrictive with every single, whatever, because that's not sustainable. I'm really about sustainable, and I'm really about you finding a weight that is workable, that you like, you can still breathe at, and sticking to it, because
Right.
then you have so much more time in your day.
Yeah.
I mean, I wrote a book, right?
Right.
So you
Yes.
can do
Yes.
it,
There you have it.
because when but when so much of your thoughts are like, what's going on, and what am I going to weigh? Did I eat enough? Can I, God help me if my husband wants to go to dinner on Friday. Am I going to be the fattest wife at the retreat? That actually happened one time. I was really worried about it. All these crazy thoughts take up a lot of room.
Yeah.
So
They
when
sure
that
do.
room is open, I mean, you could probably cure the common cold, right?
Yeah. Yes.
So let's open that up. We're going to have balanced blood sugar. And also, what's just one more thing is, I don't work out as much as I used to.
Well, I mean, it makes a lot of sense because number
Yeah.
one, you're happy. Number two, you don't have to worry about your weight so much, and you're emotionally stable. Erin, let's take a moment here. We got about 2 minutes left. I have at the end of my show, I have something that I love called Final Thoughts. So I open the airways up to you for about 2 minutes. What are your final thoughts about today's show? It can be anything. It can be something instructional. It can be something that is inspiring. What are your final thoughts?
My final thoughts are that we need to put food where it is meant to be in our list of priorities. We need it to sustain our lives. We need it to nourish us. It's supposed to not make us
Go crazy.
repulsed. Yeah, but we are supposed to have this huge emotional reaction to it.
Right.
So I try to get my clients, or my goal is to always get them to, as I call, like, food neutral. I'm not scared of food anymore, but I don't look forward to it like I used to. Like, I used to be like, yay, it's time to eat again.
Yeah.
Where now I'm like, I should probably eat dinner. It's a different feeling. So to get to a place of being food neutral, to get to a place of, I don't, if I cut my foot open, I wouldn't care if they weighed me. These are all
Yes.
very freeing
Sure.
things. So it is completely possible, but we have to really be willing to be honest with ourselves about, the little secret stash of gummy bears I used to have in the console of my car, like those little things. Because if you eat one way in front of people and another way in front of yourself, like all those little secrets,
There's a problem.
There's a problem.
Yeah.
And, it might not seem as ugly as other people's secrets, but it still is very taxing when we have
Sure.
them. And you can absolutely get away from them if you're willing to admit you have them and just move on.
Right.
So just let's move on together, and let's 2019 be the year that you moved on from it.
Fantastic. Erin, thank you so much for being on my show, Health Matters. Ladies and gentlemen, please support Erin. She's got a great book out here, Why Can't I Stick to My Diet? Check her out. Erin, what's your website?
Erin Wathen Wellness.
Erin Wathen Wellness. Fantastic. Okay, so folks, next week I'll return 5 p.m. Eastern Standard Time, January 22nd. I have the amazing Lillian McDermott. I will see you then. Until then, Happy New Year. Have a great 2019.
Welcome to Health Matters with Dr. Nelson Bulmash, sponsored by the UI Radio Network at uiradionetwork.org. Catch us on Facebook and Instagram at United Intentions and Twitter at Higher Intention. Look for us on 99.1 FM, iTunes, iHeartRadio, Spreaker, Stitcher, Blog Talk Radio, and many more. Over the next hour, we'll introduce you to some fascinating people and engaging discussions that may provide you with answers to assist in revolutionizing your own personal health. And now, here's Dr. Nelson.